stopper with great skill from him. Doing the Mo Salah! Raheem Sterling! What a finish! What pure class from the Englishman!
Premier Talk, the English Premier League podcast for the fans.
Hello and welcome back to the Premier Talk podcast. What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the Premier Talk podcast, season 4, episode 6. I tried to catch you off guard there, Daniel.
You caught me off guard big time. I was not expecting that.
we got a good one in store just before the PL stops for the World Cup break, obviously. Daniel, let's get right into the starting lineup for this week, baby. Let's go.
Starting lineup. We're starting us off with storylines of the week.
We got an interesting one here. A little bombshell out of Manchester. It's Ronaldo with his interviewer friend Morgan Piers.
No, it's Piers Morgan.
Oh, Piers Morgan.
Yeah, you know, that came out of absolutely left field, but we're gonna have a quick talk about Cristiano Ronaldo speaking out on the Piers Morgan. He had an interview with him, which was just wild. And lastly, we got the PL World Cup breakouts. We're just gonna go one-on-one on a few youngsters we think are gonna do really well in this World Cup, because the next time you will hear from us will be right after the World Cup starts, right after the first game, Qatar versus Ecuador, I believe. Yeah. So Andrew Lamello, storylines of the week.
Man,
Manchester United versus Fulham.
This is a brutal one. Man United's like that friend that's, you hate, but you just keep him around, and he helps you sometimes, but then he lets you down a whole bunch. That's the type of team Man United is. Daniel, this was one that I tuned in for, one that I was, I'm like, Fulham could cause some problems, and this is one where they did. Unfortunately for Fulham, they lose their second straight week in a row. This was again to another team from Manchester. They lost last week against City. Now they lose against United. So for Fulham, it's 2 consecutive losses against the Manchester-based side. This was a really good game for Eriksen. He got a goal and assist. He got his first goal for Man United in what was his 20th appearance for the club, a big one for sure. And he was he did his job really well on this day, and he was probably United's best player, in my opinion, on the pitch. It was just a goal that came from transition, a ball that was won in the midfield. Looked like it could have been a foul. It wasn't. Man United drove forward. Bruno Fernandes, tried scoring, and he struck the ball on target, deflected off of Diop's heel, and found its way in the back post where, Eriksen had just sort of steered it into the goal, sliding for the ball. And it was a very important goal for United early on in the first half. But then, Philip was causing some problems. They had a good chance that was stopped by De Gea. Tim Ream's header off a cross was absolutely robbed. This is, maybe a statement game from De Gea, showing that he was missed out in this World Cup roster for Spain. And then Daniel, your favorite, one of your favorite all-time Man United legends, Dan James. It had
to be Dan James. It had to be.
It was an ugly goal. Like, it just managed to find its way in the net. Ball was squared again. Goal in transition. Lots of room for Fulham to work with. Lots of gaps in Man United's defense. And Dan James was only on the pitch for like 2 minutes after coming on as a sub, and he managed to score. And what made me so agitated about this goal was the fact that Luke Shaw didn't even know where Dan James was. He was running beside him the whole time, never checked his shoulder once, zero awareness. And then the guy was like pissed off that they had scored. Dan James had scored. Meanwhile, it was his man to mark. He ran in behind Emi Martinez, good one. He ran it behind Lisandro Martinez and just exploited the space very nicely. But again, it was a Manchester United mistake, and this is why they struggle. This is why they draw points. And they're lucky enough that the 18-year-old star that's really emerging on the scene the last couple of games, which is Alejandro Garnacho, the United or the Ronaldo fanboy. He loves CR7. He loves him.
He's an Argentinian that loves CR7 way too much. He loves him. Someone go figure that one out.
But anyways, he just lovely off-ball movement, 1-2 exchange with Eriksen, using his speed, beats the man, finds his way to the ball, and just nets the ball, low-driven goal. Lovely from Alejandro Garnacho. Daniel, I just want to ask you very quickly, what are your thoughts on this player? Do you think he can continue to force players like Alanga to sit on the bench and also guys like Sancho to sit on the bench if he keeps playing this way.
Yeah, being honest with you, this kid has been really good he was playing for the U21s for a while. He came up from their youth academy, and I don't think anybody expected him to be this good on the biggest of stages of all, which is the Premier League. But he's showing that he can, in fact, compete with other players. And like you said, I think he has a great chance to be a phenomenal player. And for now, he's going to make guys like Elanga sit on the bench. Being honest with you, Elanga wasn't good against Fulham. He did not have a good game at all. And I'm going to do a quick shout out here. Alexander Della Penna, one of my buddies, he texted me and he goes, get Elanga off the field, bring Garnacho in. That's what he texted me. I got that. I'll show it on screen. The fact he sent that text and then Elanga got taken off, Garnacho came on. And when Garnacho came on, and it's been like this over the last couple of games, every time Garnacho makes an appearance, the game changes.
He's got an impact, man, an immediate impact.
He has a massive impact on this game. And you don't really see that from somebody at the age of 18, but it is really incredible to see. And I think this guy can have a really lasting impact on this league.
He literally bailed out United at the death. That was a 90th +3. So in stoppage time there, very lucky, very lucky for United to get 3 points in this one. I don't think they deserved the 3 points entirely. I thought Fulham was decent. You know, he showed his quality, Garnacho, there in that moment. It was, a lovely goal to watch. But at the same time, they get 3 points, but it's not a good step forward for United.
No,
okay, yeah, you got the 3 points, but you play like garbage. Like there was moments when you lacked as a team and organization. There was moments where I saw just Fulham had loads of space to work with. Players like Willian that don't have speed, they're just attacking these areas and causing problems. So for United, it's just there's a lot of things to be fixed right now. A lot of things to be fixed, and it comes down to players not wanting enough, like Luke Shaw.
Yep, I completely agree. And going back to Dan James, of course it had to be Dan James. Like, there's a special place in my heart for Dan James. And of course it had to be him. And I was like, I didn't know if I wanted to hug him or squeeze him. But yeah, of course, had to be Dan James. And then one other thing I want to touch upon. Eriksen, for me, has been the best signing United made over the last year.
Yeah.
Coming into this Premier League season. I didn't think he was going to be this good, to be completely honest with you. Of course, everyone knows he has talent. And he's showed that he's proved that he deserves to be in as big of a league as the Premier League. But I didn't think after everything he's gone through with his heart in the World Cup and then, slowly transitioning back into the Premier League and then making an appearance for Manchester United, I didn't think he was going to be this good. And it's been scary how good he's been, because I think he's been one of United's best players this season.
Yeah, I agree. Daniel, let's get into the next topic here. This is one where, I'm a little bit conflicted because I love watching them. They're, one of my favorites in the PL to watch all time, which is Chelsea. And another game, another loss. They play Newcastle in this one. Newcastle have been very hot this season. But it's not good enough from Chelsea. This is their third straight loss. One of the losses coming against Manchester City in the EFL. So just let me read out some of their recent results. So Newcastle 1-0 loss. Man City 2-0 loss in the EFL Cup, and then against Arsenal, their crosstown rival, that was 1-0. A familiar occurrence from all three games is that they didn't even get on the score sheet. They didn't manage to score a goal. This is terrible. So for Chelsea, that they brought in guys like Aubameyang, got rid of their problem player in Lukaku. They're not doing well. They're doing terrible in the goal scoring department. Guys like Mason Mount have no impact on the game at times. Gallagher had the best opportunity for this team in the game, and he was mediocre at best. He had a strike on goal that was parried away by Pope. It was an okay strike. I thought that there was some theatrics from Pope in the way he saved the ball, but it's just not good enough. And people say it's the coach. That's why they got rid of Tuchel. It's the coach. Tuchel's, tactics are outdated. It was never the coach, Daniel. No. It was never the coach. It's this plantel of players. They got an old aging core that won them the UCL a couple years ago. Those players have tapered off significantly. Then they have young, unproven talents that come into the side and don't deliver on a weekly basis. One week they're good, the next week they're inconsistent. And then you have some key injuries that have forced players out, like N'Golo Kante, that have forced players out, like Aspi early in the season. He's come back now, but you're missing some key guys. Dan James, another injury. You're missing some key guys, and then you mix that with players that
Reece James.
players that can't do it anymore. They can't do it anymore, Daniel. And people say it's the coach. It's the coach. It's not the coach, man. And I think it's so Tuchel was so hard done by the way he was removed from this team. I know that Bowley wanted to get someone new in there, but this is a joke right now. These players don't look the caliber of Chelsea FC players. They don't. And then you're going into this World Cup. Hopefully they could get things in order by the time it's over. Because if not, it's just going to be an uncontrollable downward spiral for this Chelsea side.
I think they're only saving grace in what fans are seeing right now. Of course, they're in terrible run of form, but if you look against the teams they've played, Newcastle, a top tier side this year, City, who Newcastle currently sits in third, City in the EFL Cup currently sits in second, and Arsenal currently sits in first. So I guess your only saving grace as a Chelsea fan right now is that, okay, you didn't score a goal against the top 3 teams in the league. It's not good enough still, but it's something that you can fall back on.
Daniel,
Again,
their last
still not good enough.
Daniel, their last win was in October 16th, over a month ago. That was against Villa. It was a 2-0 win, and since then they've lost games against Brighton and Arsenal and the likes of these other teams that we've mentioned. But Daniel, it's ridiculous. It's been over a month since they've got 3 points. It's not good enough. I'm sorry, it's not good enough.
It is.
You have the kind of team history, and budget that some of these other teams don't have the privilege of having. It's just really shocking. It's really shocking to see. And people, I used to really like Mason Mount, but he's sometimes in games where he doesn't even look like he's on the pitch. It's just like playing with one less player. And I think that this English hype is getting to a point where it's
getting ridiculous.
Yeah, it's very ridiculous. That's my rant for this Chelsea team. Newcastle, they did really well to get the win here. Joe Willock scored a screamer, just a loose ball that he hit first time. Lovely goal. They were looking at an offside potentially, but it wasn't. And another massive 3 points for Newcastle, and they deserved it. Newcastle deserved it. They've been really working and playing with passion. That's what I feel this Chelsea team's lacking, is passion. No passion. No passion.
No passion.
No passion.
Look, for me, Chelsea, like one of the guys I always fall back on, who's a youngster, like you mentioned in this game, Conor Gallagher. I think he has so much potential and so much talent. And there's games where he looks like he's the best player on the field, and there's other games where it's just lackluster.
It's a consistency issue here.
And
with these young
the
guys.
consistency is huge, and he's not performing to what I think everyone expects him to be performing to, and I think he knows that.
Daniel, he did it with Crystal Palace. You put him on a better team, obviously with better resources, and collectively around you have a better talent. So that could only bring you up, right? But sometimes he just looks very poor, because last year for Crystal Palace, he was super consistent. This guy was doing it week in, week out. I don't know if because he was the man on that team, or he brought himself out from the rest of the players. I don't know, because there's some quality players on Palace too, not to the level and degree of supposedly of Chelsea, but like you mentioned, consistency is a big issue with this team.
We're gonna move on here quickly. Just two quick games I want to touch upon. City losing 2-1 to Brentford. Ivan Toney double, who was not selected.
Legend,
and then proceeds to go and stand in front of all the fans with 2 fingers in his ears, blocking out all the haters.
Was that what it was for? I thought he had like earwax or something he was trying to pick out.
Yeah, he was trying to get the earwax out. Yeah, of course. And then after City went on to lose that game against Brentford, the Arse, who look like they have a really fighting chance of winning this league, which is hilarious to say in my personal opinion. But look, they've been quality. They go and they beat Wolves, who obviously hasn't been that good of a team as of this year, but they did come up with 3 points, 2-1.
Yeah, it was an important win for Arsenal, obviously. And Arsenal they're just smiling, because not only did they get a crucial 3 points, in the same match, their best rival, I guess you could say, the next team up to challenge them this year is City. Obviously, they drop points. So for City to lose against Brentford, oh man, this is just a tough one. I thought Ivan Toney was phenomenal on this day. I thought he was playing with some confidence and with some anger, because obviously not being selected.
He was angry.
I think he should be in that roster. I think so. But obviously Southgate didn't.
See more than 10 players better than him right, in current form on
Oh,
that
yeah.
England team.
I think this might be the last we see of Ivan Toney in a Brentford shirt. I think maybe following this World Cup or even in the summer, maybe he might play the rest of the season out with Brentford, but I think he can move to another club because he's quality and he's shown that he's got a good history of scoring goals. So I like him, but City,
Yeah.
big missed opportunity.
This year, the only English player who has more goals than Ivan Toney is Harry Kane.
Yeah.
And when you're looking at strikers and number nines, you're looking at one thing: guys that can score in front of the goal.
Yeah.
So I don't understand how you can go on to select. Like, okay, they went on and I believe they selected like Callum Wilson. Of course, he's been great too for the Newcastle side, but who would you prefer?
I think you get a little more firepower with Ivan, but
like
I also Daniel, to be fair, Ivan Toney had a scandal like 2 weeks come out that he betted against games, so it could be why.
I saw that.
Why, but nothing's happened since then. It's been very quiet. I don't know if something's gonna come into fruition, but maybe that's possibly why they didn't want the scandals associated with the FA taking a player that did that. So or was rumored to have done that. So I don't know.
One more other thing before we move on. The England national team is one of the only national teams that didn't select 26 guys to go to the World Cup. They selected 25 of the possible 26, which is one thing I can't quite wrap my head around. Are they waiting for a last second player? Are they?
It's very possible.
Is Southgate okay with just taking 25 out of the 26, which makes no sense to me when you have a pool of some of the greatest players in the world? Why not just take 26 guys? But I don't know. That was just one other thing I wanted to touch upon.
Yeah, I don't know. It's an interesting fact that you bring up, but why not take the player if you have 26? Why not? What harm is it going to do,
Exactly. If he doesn't touch the field, he can.
Who cares?
At least you get that player to say that you had him available on the bench for you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, never know. Daniel, let's get into the next little segment here. CR7 speaks out. Wow. Daniel, give the listeners a little bit of rundown of what happened on the Piers Morgan show.
Piers Morgan, Piers. Yeah, for those of you that do not look at social media and they did not look at social media at all yesterday,
you would have seen it. You would have seen it.
You would have seen this everywhere. But those of you that don't, we're gonna do a quick little rundown for you guys. Cristiano Ronaldo went on to the Piers Morgan show. He had a quick interview with Piers Morgan, and it was said by the British media that actually Ronaldo requested this interview. In the interview, he spoke incredibly poorly about Manchester United, their club as a whole, and he also took a couple shots at club managers such as Erik ten Hag and former club manager Ralph Rangnick. Rooney also came up in conversation somehow. I believe it was just asked by Piers Morgan what he thought about Rooney's comments a few weeks back when Rooney was commenting on Ronaldo leaving the pitch early. And there's also been news lately that Rooney said in an interview that he thinks Messi is better than Ronaldo. And they always had a pretty good relationship. But now all of a sudden their relationship has sort of crumbled. And Ronaldo came out saying that he thinks Rooney might be jealous that he's still playing at such a high level at the age because they are the same age. They're both 37 years old. And then he also took a shot saying he's better looking than Rooney because Rooney doesn't have any hair or something. It's kind of funny, actually. I won't lie to you. And then the last thing he kind of said was that he feels as though he's being forced out by not only the manager, but also 2 or 3 players. And he said that he feels betrayed by this club. Look, a lot of news here. This is something that I don't think a lot of people expected Ronaldo to do. Mello, I'm going to ask what your thoughts on this first before I answer you because I have a little
well, Daniel,
spiel.
So Ronaldo mentioned, and I didn't get to watch the interview. I just read like the quotes from the interview, and some of the information summed up by the interview. And what Ronaldo mentioned, he mentioned something about the facilities, like it hasn't changed. I expect the infrastructure to change. And like that the jacuzzis were the same and like some of the chefs were the same, so that sort of thing. So what I take away from this is get Ronaldo a jacuzzi, get him a new jacuzzi. It'll make him happy.
Get him a new jacuzzi.
Get him a new jacuzzi. Ronaldo loves his jacuzzis, his spa days. Get him a nice jacuzzi. He's trying to take care of the body. But no, in all seriousness, maybe he felt like he couldn't talk to anyone anymore and like he had to bring this and make it public. Maybe the relationship was that bad, it was so broken, he already knew no matter what he did, if he went to the media and aired out his grievances, that it was already done. Like his relationship was already done. So that's why I think he did this. I reached a boiling point of no return. So he's like, yeah, I'm just gonna go to the media anyways and tell my side of the story and let people know what's going on here at the club, because for his standards, for what the standards of United should be, they're obviously not meeting those standards. And I don't blame him. I don't blame him. He's gone through a rough patch, obviously with some personal stuff with his family and losing a child. And I think he kind of alluded to that in this interview, that he was never it wasn't him missing the preseason wasn't about finding other clubs, and necessarily. It was more about like him just taking personal time. That's what I think I understood from it. And for him to come and say he doesn't respect the coach because the coach doesn't respect him, people are saying, he's cocky, he's ruining his legacy. I don't think he is by doing this. I think he's, standing up for what he feels is, he's been done wrong by the club. And for someone, a player of his stature and someone that's given so much to the club in his first term with the club, and also even coming back in the second term, I feel like he's been done wrong by. So I think after this interview, he's never going to wear the Manchester United shirt in a game again. If he does, I'll be shocked. I'll be absolutely shocked. I think he's gone. I think he's gone after this World Cup. And I hope for Portugal's sake, this is not a distraction and that his form drops. I hope this is the opposite, and maybe it burns, a little bit of fire under him and he starts playing and we get the vintage Ronnie, the Jacuz Ronnie. So
when he
that's
has
what I'm
nice
hoping.
jacuzzi.
He
That's
loves
why
it.
that's why he's been bored.
He needs you've seen him on Instagram live in the sauna in his backyard. He loves a good spa day. He loves a good jacuzzi. So, I think that's the key to Ronaldo's heart, is a good, nice, little jacuzzi.
I agree with you when I think that Cristiano Ronaldo has played his last game for Manchester United. I don't think he will ever feature again at the club. Look, United gave him a second chance almost, with the whole thing about him leaving and running down the tunnel early before the match ended because he didn't want to come on as a substitute late in the game. I think that was his first and only warning, and it was a big warning at that. He got fined, he got left out of the squad. This isn't something you can give a player a warning for. This is,
but he doesn't care about warnings, Daniel. He's done with the team. He's done.
I think he's done with that. But
who knows how bad it was before he left that day? That day he probably left because all this stuff was already going on. 100% was going on, and he's like, "Yeah, I'm just done with this. I'm done with this club.
I'm done with this." He's been waiting to air this out
environment.
Months.
Yeah, for sure.
But I don't think that he did it in the best way he possibly could have. I know, like you said, he may not have felt that he had anybody to go to. The only person I think of, just because I know their relationship and their relationship is Fergie. And that's obviously somebody he has a great relationship with and someone he knows that he can fall back on.
I'm sure he has, Daniel. I'm sure he has, but we just haven't heard about it because that's something that would be kept private. This is where he had to go, let the world know what was going on. He had to say his position. This is why he's been acting the way he's been acting the last couple of months. This is the treatment he's received. He wants to show the world. That's what I think this was about. It wasn't, he probably went to people internally, tried to fix this. He said it wasn't just the coach that wanted him out. There was people high up in the club. This is stuff that even himself and the player that he is, he can't change. This is the board. This is, people that have influence and are just so rude in the club. So, it's a big mess.
Where I differentiate from you, though, is I think that I don't want to say tarnishing his legacy, because his legacy on the field is completely different than his legacy outside the field. But I think that this gives him a little bit of a bad rep, just simply because this isn't something. It's not something that you see players do really ever. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like this is very new for a player to go into an interview with the media and to air out everything that's happened at a club. And I'll just finish with this. He did this, and it's very new. And on top of it being very new, he is Cristiano Ronaldo. He is one of the greatest players of all time. And people need to realize that. And he needs to sort of act like it. Although you feel, and multiple feel, I even feel that he probably didn't have anybody to fault in the club. This is the wrong way of doing it. That's all I want to say about that.
But Dino, my thing is this. Star athletes in other sports have done things tremendously worse, and people still view them as the best ever to do it. Like I give you the example of Jordan and how Jordan was gambling, and people still regard Jordan as the best ever, but that gambling stuff rarely ever comes up. So I think it's not the exact same, but it's an example of like a player doing something against the norms and still being viewed as the GOAT. So I don't think it's going to tarnish his legacy at all. I think the people that are saying are just anti-Ronaldo to begin with. They're really trying to just bring him down. But I think this was the right thing for him to do, considering all the facts. And hopefully we could see him play somewhere else and play, obviously not. He's not the player he was a couple of years ago, but just play to the best of his ability and play in the right headspace, because you could see he's not in the right headspace.
Yeah, he is not at all.
Daniel, last segment here, baby. Let's go. PL World Cup
PL.
breakouts.
Okay, this is just quick. I just want to know one player who you think is gonna break out in this year's World Cup. The World Cup starts 6 days from now. We got it going on November 20th, Sunday, November 20th. It's the last thing, I believe, like 31 or 32 days. 32 nations. Andrew Mello. I need one player who you
Daniel.
think from the Premier League is going to be a massive breakout this year.
Daniel, this is a great question, because every time we have an international tournament, whether it's the Euros, the World Cup, any sort of major international tournament, we always have a player or two that breaks out. We had Patrick Schick in the Euros a couple of years ago, Ronaldo Sanchez in the Euros in 2016. So there's always that guy that's never really on the radar, and he really emerges as a top tier talent. And I think that for me, it has to be Salcedo from Brighton Hove Albion. He's a player that's sort of under the radar right now, but he's going to be a massive part to that Ecuadorian midfield. They're in a group that's, it's not the best of scenarios for Ecuador, but I think it's one that they could still make it out of. They have Netherlands, Qatar, the host nation, obviously, and Senegal is the fourth team. Senegal is missing Sadio Mane, so the chances have just increased drastically for them. They also had a really good qualifying campaign. And I think that Salcedo's that box-to-box midfielder that's really going to hold that team together. And only at 20 years of age, I think he's only 20. He's going to be a player that I think will break out this tournament. Another player that I'd say he's more on the radar that's going to have a good tournament, I think it's going to be Bernardo Silva. I think he's going to be Portugal's best player this year at this tournament. Very, fluid player. If he's played in the middle of the park in one of those 3 center mid roles, I think he's going to have more success than out on the wing, because Fernando Santos likes playing him out on the wing. It's not his true position. He doesn't have the pace for that position in the system that we play in transition. I think he's much better in the midfield, controlling the game, picking those passes, that sort of thing. I think he's a player that can have a really good tournament. But the lower end, I would say Salcedo for sure. What about you?
So I'm picking a guy that I believe is just a very obvious choice. It's not Salcedo for me. That was a good one, actually. I won't lie to you, because it's not an obvious choice for me. The player that I think, look, this player is already world class. It's Phil Foden. He is a phenomenal talent, and I think he's been on everybody's radar for years now. I think that this World Cup is going to propel him to becoming one of the best players in the Premier League. Look, at 22 years of age, he's phenomenal. He plays on a City side that is absolutely dominant, and he gets on the score sheet week in, week out. He contributes to the squad even when he's not on the score sheet, and he's just such a young, phenomenal talent. I think he's going to start every single game for that England side. I think he should be starting every single game for that England side, and I think they have choices and options where they can play him. They can play him out on the wing. They can play him in midfield. They can play him attacking midfielder right behind Kane as, let's say, number 10. But look, Phil Foden, for me, is one of the greatest youngsters in the Prem right now, and I think that he's really going to show in this World Cup coming up.
Yeah, no, that's a great pick. I really think it's a little bit, too obvious, but it's a good pick nonetheless. It's a good pick. Now that about wraps it up for this episode. Guys, we're going to be sort of segueing into World Cup news and more of the World Cup talk, obviously, because it's the pinnacle of, football, the sport, the pinnacle of tournaments, really. So we're going to be talking about a lot about the World Cup, trying to have that, Premier League influence there as well, talk about Premier League players in the tournament as well. And also following current news from the PL that's still happening. We won't be able to talk about games because they're obviously not, they're on pause for a month, but we're definitely going to be having some interesting conversation about this upcoming World Cup.
Yeah, there isn't any PL games until after Christmas, I believe, because it's funny because everyone keeps saying Arsenal's top of the league at Christmas. And that's the whole trending thing right now. And they've never won the Premier League when they've been leading at Christmas time. So quick stat for you guys there. Yeah, we're transitioning to World Cup. World Cup starts on November 20th, Sunday, November 20th. Of the game at 11 o'clock a.m. in Eastern time is Qatar and Ecuador. So
yeah, so next episode we're going to be talking about the Ecuador Qatar game and just our overall thoughts of the first couple of days of the tournament. Nonetheless, Daniel, that about wraps it up for this episode 6 already of season 4. Another one of the books. We hope to hear from you on social media and our platforms, and we'll see you guys next episode next week. Take care, everyone.
See you later.
Ronaldo Jacuz.